Welcome to this very important 9-2-NY talk entitled, When is Anti-Zionism Anti-Semitism? I'm Susan Engel, the executive producer of 9-2-NY Talks. As Israel is still reeling from the horrific massacre of October 7th, the war with Hamas and Israel rages on, and with increasing anti-Semitism on the rise in the United States and all over the world, there could not be a more important question we must ask. The 92nd Street Y, as a proudly Jewish institution, is committed to exploring these issues that speak to the existential and practical future of what it means to be Jewish today. With us, we are fortunate to have a leading expert in the field directly from Israel. Professor Dina Porat is the founding head of the Cantor Center for the Study of Contemporary European Jewry. She served as head of the Department of Jewish History of the Rosenberg School of Jewish Studies and as incumbent of the Alfred P. Slaner Chair in Anti-Semitism and Racism, all at Tel Aviv University. She also served as the Yad Vashem chief historian from 2010 until 2021 and is now its academic advisor. She has been awarded so many prizes for her extraordinary books and publications, too numerous to mention. Her most recent book is Nakam, The Holocaust Survivors Who Sought Full-Scale Revenge. And she has also served as an expert on Israeli foreign ministry delegations to the UN World Conferences and was the academic advisor of the International Task Force on Holocaust Education, Remembrance, and Research. Without further ado, please welcome Professor Dina Porat.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much for this kind introduction. It could have been shorter. And let us say and welcome everyone who bothered to come. I know it is about, it's a bit about afternoon time over there, isn't it? It's 8 o'clock here, and greetings from Tel Aviv. I will start right away. The topic is, as Susan indeed mentioned, is when can we say, when does anti-Zionism be mentioned, explained, said that it is anti-Semitic or antisemitism? And I would add to this topic also the why. Why at that point anti-Zionism becomes anti-Semitism? Okay, so this is the topic. And then next, of course, after spelling out the topic, let us define anti-Zionism. What is it that we are talking about? I think we use anti-Zionism so much. I mean, Jews, non-Jews, pro and con, the Jewish people, Israel, the term is used a lot. So let us try to take a closer look at it than we are used to, and to define it, because what does it mean to be an anti-Zionist? Or what is anti-Zionism? It means to be against the Zionist movement and against the Jewish state that was the result of the Zionist movement. If you are against, what does it mean to be against? It means that you do not wish it to exist. You think it's a mistake, it is not legitimate, it is not okay to have developed. Let us bear this in mind. Let us bear this in mind because it definitely has a relevance on our question. When does anti-Zionism can be called anti-Semitism? If you are against the national movement, the question is, of course, are you also against some other national movements? Are you against only this national movement? Are you only against the state that came out of it, or other states that were a result of national movements? Let us keep this in mind, because and come back to it at the end. But these are definitely heavy and even unpleasant, I would say, questions. Let us do the following. Let me please divide the time that Susan allotted to me into a few words about background and development, with allusions to our today, to what is happening today, and then today, what are the elements that developed earlier but stay until today? This is what I would like to do: background, development, and today, and of course a finale. But I would like to say, before we start embarking on these two parts, that when this event was planned, this was before the three presidents of such major universities said in hearings in the Congress what they said, and before we heard the testimonies of Jewish students in Congress. And I certainly must say that this gives more, I would say, make whatever we are about to say heavier, and even more painful, as we said. And I would also like to say that whatever I say is within context. It does not depend on any context. It is as it is. No context around it. It has now become, of course, a coin, a word, a term that runs around this context business. Okay, let's start with background and and development. First, let me say that once Zionism as a movement, as an idea, came into being, late 19th century and into the 20th century, you had opposition to it within the Jewish people. You know, I'm sure you know, that on the eve of World War II, only 10% of the Jewish people worldwide were members of the Zionist movement, gave a shekel, paid a shekel formally to be a formal member. Only 10%. Of course, there were many more, those who had empathy, who thought about it, but members, 10%. And the rest were, there were communists, there were Bundists, the workers, the Yiddishist Jewish party that was very popular, especially among the Jewish population in Poland. There were communists, there were Bundists, there were territorialists who wanted the territory. There were autonomists who wanted any autonomy, assimilationists, and of course the Orthodox. All these, 90%, were against the Zionist movement. We will not delve into each of them and their motivations or arguments. I will only say that all these had an argument with the Zionist movement within the Jewish people. It had nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It was an inside debate, inside going back and forth arguments. What is happening today is that you do have Jews, especially Jewish scholars, especially on the left, among them some ex-Israelis who are living abroad. I'm saying ex because they don't live anymore in Israel, and I'm not sure they consider themselves Israelis, who argue with Zionism, who are post-Zionist or anti-Zionist, and are leading a debate that is not an inside and in-home one. It is one that is being held outside and does have definitely a relevance on anti-Zionism as antisemitism, as we will see in a few moments. A second point of background and development. The Zionist movement began, I'm sure you know all this, again, I'm just straightening the picture. The Zionist movement was established in parallel to the anti-Semitic movement. Herzl was born in 1860. 1880, when he was 20, he started acting, writing, thinking, and then becoming a leader. At the same 1880s and 1890s, the anti-Semitic movement began with pamphlets, with suggestions to the parliaments to limit civic rights, etc., with all kinds of suggestions. Jews go to Palestine. Even one said, if advocated physical harm, etc. But anyhow, they developed in parallel. The Dreyfus affair, the end of the 19th century, the last years, the protocols of the Elder of Zion, the same time, and the first Zionist Congress at the same time. So they went hand in hand. But unfortunately, as it happened, very unfortunately, the anti-Semitic movement went by far faster into the Nazi ideology and the Holocaust, which was of course, in the 1940s, and the State of Israel was born only in 48. So, but let us remember that they were always born side by side and developed side by side. So there wasn't this distance that doesn't let us say, okay, this can turn into this, and the Zionism into anti-Semitism. Third point, the Soviet Union. Soviet Union played a major role, which is felt until today, but it started early when it was established. It was against Zionism being held as an idea among Jews in the Soviet Union. They were persecuted for it. They were executed for it. No Zionism among Jews in the Soviet Union. But at the same time, in 1948, the Soviet Union supported the establishment of the State of Israel, which was surprising, unexpected. It supported it not because they were beautiful eyes or because they change of mind. It was a result of interest, an interest to enter the Middle East once the British leave and before the Americans enter. And so they were in favor, and there were relations, etc., until 1967. I think that in 1960s, our story of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism begins. Because what happened was that after 1967, the 6 Days War, the Soviet Union had changed its course and became a supporter, a fully fledged supporter of the Arab countries, not only of the Arab countries. They enlisted the countries that were called unidentified, but they weren't identified because of Soviet impact. That's Latin America, some of the African countries, Far Asia, and the Arab countries. So the Soviet Union built a sort of a block an anti-Israeli bloc, which voted in the UN, for instance, automatically, no matter what, you had an anti-Israeli vote because of the number of countries that the Soviet Union enlisted, supported them, money, products, etc. So they followed it. And here you have the beginnings of anti-Zionism in politics. Okay. One more major element is born in the 1960s, again with an impact until these very days. And this is the students' uprising in 1968. You remember the students, an uprising against the establishment, against whatever consisted the former known conservative world. And there and then, a new left was born, left, young, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, anti-racism, of course, and anti-capitalism, and anti-United States. Anti-United States, which automatically means anti-Israel, because since 1967, Israel and the United States are in a political bond. So wherever you have an anti-United States, you have anti-Israel as well. Okay, why? Why should have the mighty giant Soviet Union, why should it have invested, why should it have invested so much in fighting and attacking tiny Israel? And then tiniest and with a lot less of a population. Because communism failed. They failed in stopping the Nazi party, the communists in Germany, communists in Italy, the communist movement in general. They failed in stopping the Nazis. In 1938, Ribbentrop and Molotov, the two foreign ministers, the German and the Soviet one, signed the pact, you know, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, August 1939, that enabled Germany to invade Poland and start a world war. They signed it in contrary to all their speakings against the right and against the Nazis, etc., etc. And after this surprising attack that they suffered by Nazi Germany, who violated the pact, they lost, Soviet Union lost 20 million. Okay, I will not delve into all these historical points. I will only say that now Soviet leaders had to find someone to blame. They failed to stop. They signed the pact. They were attacked by surprise. They lost 20 million. Okay, who is to blame? Certainly not them. No one likes to blame himself. Not the Soviet leadership, the Jews, the Zionists, an old enemy of theirs that they were against since their beginning. And there and then, another major point started, and this is accusing Zionism not only of being Nazis, this Nazi being Nazis or close to Nazis or cooperating with the Nazis started after 1967. And now you can see easily an alliance between the new left in the West and the Soviet Union. Both had the same line, saying that the United States, again, is capitalist, colonialist, racist, etc., etc., and so is Israel. Yeah, that goes with it. And for the first time, but we'll meet them soon later, Jews. The Jews who support Israel are of the same mind, like-minded. Colonially, they are supporting colonialism, racism, imperialism, etc., etc., and Nazi Israel. This point of view divided the world into the good ones and the bad ones, the good ones and the bad ones. And this division definitely holds until today. Now, why is this comparison to the Nazis? Not only to take the blame off their head, but the left, and this has to do with the left of today and the academic left as well, that we will come to very soon. The left, if the left is against a national movement, or against the existence of a state, as were the Soviets and the left, the Western left, if they're against, abolishing or being against the existence of a state is a crime. It's quite a crime. It has never been called so before. The call to abolish a state or to be against its very existence did not happen before, did not exist before. And in order to justify it, you have to blame this state with a crime no less big and no less severe and no less criminal. And this was found in likening them to the Nazis. This is where it comes from. It comes from this wish to take the blame for World War II and later the Holocaust off their heads, and by blaming Jews who support Israel, and through that, United States with Nazism. 1975, Soviet Union orchestrates a decision in the UN, and it says, and the resolution says that Zionism equals racism. Racism is the cornerstone of Nazi ideology. So you see that the blame and the likening to Nazis goes on and is sanctioned by the United Nations, which it didn't, the majority wasn't too big. 32 abstained, 32 were against, but still it was so decided that Zionism equals racism. And now to one more point in which, as we said, that this point would come in time, the likening of Jews and Israel in a much closer way, in putting them, I would say, together as one entity. Until this point, it comes in the 1980s, until this point in Israel, it was accepted that in Israel, a new Jew is born. It's not an exilic Jew. It's fresh and daring and this and that. And it's not like, it doesn't resemble the exilic Jew. But with time, and as you can see, with this, putting Jews and Israel into one entity, one close entity, Israeli society accepted it, and accepted, certainly after 1973, the Yom Kippur War, accepted that there is a Jewish faith, there is a Jewish solidarity, there is one people, and not Israel apart from Jews in the diaspora. In the 1980s, there is one more striking point. And this is not only likening to Nazis, but naming Jews and Israel as Antichrist, the modern Antichrist. And why is that? Because it was already a generation after the Holocaust, and what they said, those who supported the Palestinian mainly, it's again the left, it's again the Soviet Union, though these are the last years of the Soviet Union, they said, who brings salvation? The one who suffers. Who suffers? Jesus. Jesus is the one who suffers and brings salvation. Now, the Jews cannot bring salvation together with him. They rejected him. If they rejected him, they cannot, and they cannot be. The Holocaust is already a bit far away. They cannot be martyrs. Someone else has to be the martyr. And who? And there the political and the theological merged together, and a new martyr was found, and these are the Palestinians. And this the Christians certainly cannot be an antichrist. It has to be the Jew who rejected Jesus. And this is why the caricatures that you see since then until today, caricatures and illustrations are mainly a child on a cross, dripping blood, dripping from the left side like Jesus, etc., etc. And here, certainly, you have the Jews and Israelis together, which means that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are coming close together. In those illustrations, a soldier is always shown. He's an Israeli, but he looks like an Orthodox Jew. And he looks like an Orthodox Jew dressed in Nazi uniforms. So you have it all together. We are coming close to our time. 2001. 2001, the Durban Conference in South Africa. It was a UN huge international conference meant to deal with racism and how to tackle it. In no time at all, it turned into an anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli conference. 2 days after it ended, the Twin Towers were attacked, which meant attacking Israel and the Israel and the Jewish people, and in 2 days later, the United States. Now, there a new phase in anti-Semitism began, which we are suffering from until today, from 2001 to today, 2023. Why is that? A new phase began, a more violent, more in Muslim hands, and it it turned to be more violent, more Muslim from the streets and not from above, from governments, and the propaganda, the materials spoke definitely about Jews and Israel being one entity, and anti-Zionism became more and more anti-Semitic in symbols, in expressions, in the spreading of opinions and of propaganda. This means, and here I have to say, I'm here lecturing to you and bringing up history and now present, but you are I cannot teach you. I have to humbly say that I was asked to speak, and I do it gladly. The topic is not such a glad one, but I do it with a lot of respect to you. You are living in a reality that was not imagined, even when all these roots of this situation have been growing. Since we became one entity, every Jew is a potential target because we are one entity, not only Israelis, but Jews. Every Jew is to be blamed, like any Israeli. And he or she, a potential target. And there came back to center stage the protocols of the Elders of Zion and the international conspirations and the quest for world power, etc., etc. Violence after the Durban Conference needed a definition. In order to fight anti-Semitism, you have to and bring it to court, you have to have a definition. And indeed, in 2004-5, a definition was made, was formed, and by a host of international bodies, institutes, and scholars. But please pay attention. Much as 1897 First Congress, the Dreyfus Affair, the protocols, you have the year 2005 that impacts every day of our life today. In 2005, anti-Semitism was defined. Anti-Semitism was defined. It's not our topic today. It's a whole story how it was defined, who is pro, who is against, etc. But it was defined against this rising anti-Semitism, new anti-Semitism after Durban. The United Nations forgot all about Zionism equating racism, and they declared the Holocaust International Memorial Day on January 27, when Auschwitz was liberated by the Red Army. And since 2005, we are mentioning Holocaust International Memorial Day. So there are two positive developments in 2005. But see, again, we spoke about the Zionist movement and the anti-Semitic movement like being in a race, one parallel to another, each of them running to its goal. 2005, you have the definition, a very good development, a very good tool, and you had International Holocaust Memorial Day. But at the same year, the BDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel and its supporters came into being. It's a movement with many parts in it. It's not just made of one cloth, but it started in 2005, along the denial of the Holocaust by Iran, and we'll come back to Iran, who plays now the same role as the Soviet Union, and Hamas. The Hamas came to power in the Gaza Strip in 2005 after having written its major document years before. Now that they are in power, they were in power since 2005, sticking to the document, at the center of which is the destruction of the State of Israel. So you have again a year in which this race of the two movements takes place. Now, how does all this bring us to today? What are the factors that are in power today, and how do they affect our question of when anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism? First of all, I must say, I don't want to insult anyone, but ignorance is rampant. Younger generations, I mean, it's the third and fourth generation after the Holocaust, 75 years after the State of Israel is being born. And there is such ignorance. I saw this week and the former week, I saw demonstrations in the United States, queers for Palestine. Kinderlach, are you out of your mind? In Palestine and in Arab countries, they are persecuting the gay, the homosexuals. They are persecuting the queers. They are hanging them. And you are demonstrating for Palestine? How far can ignorance of what are the opinions in Palestine go? You know, we made a sort of a survey with friends in England, with a similar monitoring institute. We're monitoring anti-Semitism some 30 years in Tel Aviv University. And we asked some demonstrators with this plaque saying free Gaza from the Jordan to the river, etc., as they are today. They were asked, Here is the map. Can you show us Gaza on the map? Very few could. They didn't even know where it is. Please tell us, can you locate Israel on the map? Oh, what a surprise, how small, how tiny Israel is. It is tiny. And around it, there are some 1.5 billion Muslims in some dozens of countries. They didn't know which river to the sea. So first enemy is with this rampant ignorance that makes people go to the streets when they don't know about exactly about they are demonstrating. Second, Western culture, as it is manifested today in North America, in Western Europe, mainly first and foremost in American and Canadian, but first of all, American campuses. It's the same left that we started with in the 1960s. It's the same left that says, we are right, we are righteous, we are idealists, we are fighting for minorities' rights, we are fighting for minorities, for all those who are deprived, first women and people of non-white color and homosexuals, etc., etc., etc. We are deprived of political rights. We are righteous. We are idealists. This is almost, as Professor Irving Kotler, former Minister of Justice, the Canadian Minister of Justice, said, it has become a civil religion, this being protectors of rights. Jews and Israelis, Israel is Jewish. Israel is certainly a Jewish state. It's 80% Jewish. It has been so, 78%. It has been so since its establishment. 22 others are Muslim, Christians, Bedouin, Druze, Alawi, Cherkess, etc. 78 are Jewish. It's a Jewish state which carries the Jewish characteristics, the Jewish traits. Jews and Israel are privileged, this new expression. They automatically are white, rich, wealthy, powerful, etc. You go against them. So this is hard to fight because those who take this point of view see themselves as righteous, as idealists, as those fighting for a better world and fighting against the worst parts of the world in which we are unfortunately excluded. Third point, the money. Arab money now replaces the Soviet support. Arab money, I don't have to tell you, you know better. Even if now, after these three presidents of these major Ivy League universities have spoken, even if Jewish contributors take their contributions back, there will be Arab money. Qatar is the main contributor. It gives milliards, not a milliard is, in your English, it's billions to a few universities, not too many, to a few, but invest so much that it has a strong impact. They buy chairs. They buy actually the contents of what is being taught, of what is being taught in these chairs. And the leadership that will come out of these universities will be automatically anti-Israel, but will also lack in the understanding of the Middle East, because under this Arab money, what they will have is a view of the Middle East, a non-realistic one, not what it is for. So this money not only finances, but enhances increasing Muslim impact. In Europe, the millions of immigrants and their families with time, they are more and more into academics, into the media, into politics, into everything, into international institutes. Today, again, it's not the Soviet Union that orchestrates the votes in the UN. It's the Arab countries headed by Iran and the money from Qatar. Today, in the United Nations Human Rights Council, not committee, these are two bodies. The Human Rights Council, the head of the social part, the social section of this council is an Iranian. The one who headed the women's rights was from Saudi Arabia. So you don't know whether to laugh or to cry. This invasion goes in, and today Iran continues the Soviet Union, makes political alliance with Russia, China, and of course, absolutely is anti the United States, together with Russia and China, and automatically anti-Israeli and anti the Jews. So you have at least 4 factors born before, strengthened a long time, strengthened the ignorance, the principles of the left, the money or political support, and today Iran with political alliances against the United States. In 2005, we said, this critical year, Iran started a whole campaign of Holocaust denial. Holocaust denial. You know that in 1990s, a number of laws were enacted, especially in Europe, against Holocaust denial. We have today about 18, 20 countries in which you have a law against Holocaust denial. And some Holocaust deniers, against whom a verdict was pending, took the Pekalach and fled to Iran. And they are there, protected in Iran, and they help Iran with putting up exhibitions on Holocaust denial, competitions of caricatures, etc. They are all expenses covered, etc. Why? This is simple. Because what Iran is saying, and saying it today, Iran is saying that if Israel was born out of the Holocaust, it was not. I'm saying it was not. It was born as a result of Zionism and working and building the country since the 1860s. But if you say, if you agree, as they do, that it was born out of the Holocaust, and you can prove that there was no Holocaust, then it has no right to exist. This is really simple. Then, first, it didn't have the right to exist because it was compared to Nazis, and then it does not have the right to exist because the Holocaust didn't exist. So Iran replaces the Soviet Union and goes along with this. Now, I would like to end the time that Susan kindly gave me with 2 major points. One is that there is a definition, after all we've said, that I'm very proud to say that I formulated it in 2003, and then most of it was taken into the formal working definition of anti-Semitism that we do have since 2005, and then adopted again, re-adopted in 2006. And it says, when, and this is the time to say it at the end of all that we have said so far, when is anti-Zionism anti-Semitic? It is when the language, images, and character traits attributed to Israel are imbued with known anti-Semitic stereotypes. When Israelis and Jews, it's always since 2000 and Jews, are depicted as a cosmic evil, blamed for all disaster, and compared to Nazis, the ultimate evil. When Israel and Jews supporting the state of Israel are singled out and attacked, treated disproportionate manner in international and other comparisons. When the very right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state is delegitimized, when the Holocaust is being distorted, made a political weapon, and when they claim that it is misused by Jews and Israel to gain political gains. This is more or less the definition of today. When does anti-Zionism become anti-Semitic? And it came out, as you saw, from this chain of development that I gave you. Okay, see what a good girl I am? It's 50 minutes exactly.
Thank you, Professor Porat, for your very enlightening remarks. We really appreciate your being with us all the way from Israel. There were a few questions. First, how will it ever end? And what about the argument that the lack of a political solution for the Palestinians is what's creating this kind of extremism?
The first part was, when will it ever end?
How will the conflict, will it ever end with the conflict with?
Not with the, how would anti-Semitism ever end?
And the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. What is your prediction?
Well, I hate to say that I don't think anti-Semitism will ever end. Anti-Semitism against Jews, with all it has become such a useful tool, an easy tool to use. It is so uploaded with symbols and expression. It goes down everywhere. It will not end. It may perhaps subside and then come up, it happened many times. It is not going anywhere. Now, regarding the conflict, first of all, I would like to remind the person who asked it that anti-Semitism existed a long time before 1967. A long time before. It was not invented in 1967, nor was anti-Zionism, as we have shown. Jews, along the centuries, the Zionist movement since its inception, it did not come up in 1967. But the question is very pertinent, and it has been asked in Israel many times. Okay, let's say we will have a peace with the Palestinian, which is really when the more or less together with the Messiah coming down on a white donkey, as we see it. And the answer was that anti-Semitism will not go away with the conflict, because it does not originate in the conflict. It originates, as I've tried so passionately to show you, that it is embedded in interests, in world powers and the rivalry between world blocs. It goes together with the hostility toward the United States. It's a matter of money, of oil, of interests in the Middle East. It's not just Israel and the Palestinians and around them a vacuum. No, it is part of world interests, rivalries, money, oil, etc. So it's not the origin. It will perhaps subside in circles, academic leftist circles, alevai. But let me tell you this, and I'm saying it with full responsibility. On October 7, we got all those who dreamt about peace and about a two-state solution and about our neighbors coming to terms with our existence. We got such a slap in the face. How? Why did this 7 of October come? Why weren't we prepared? Which is out of question. We're not prepared, and this was a total failure, which we should accept. But where did it originate? It originated in the dream to have the Hamas as neighbors and the Palestinians. We transferred the money from Qatar, valises full of money. We let tens of thousands of the workers come work in Israel. We tried to help in medicine. You know that sick Palestinians from Gaza, including Yahya Sinwar, were operated and treated in Israel. We saved idiots. We saved his life. He was operated. He had cancer in his brain, and we operated and saved his life. 7 of October. They don't want any peace. They don't want any money. They want us destroyed and gone. And this is why we are fighting so hard now. So my answer now? Sorry.
So this is a follow-up question someone asked. There are those who say, I'm in favor of a one-state solution in which Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs live in peace in one nation that includes present-day Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank, in which all have civil rights, including the right to vote. Of course, due to demographics, that would mean either now or in the near future, the end of Israel as a Jewish state. Are those who take such a position anti-Semitic or only anti-Zionist?
Both. They are definitely both. Because there are so many evils in the world that are not treated at all. How about the academic left in these Ivy League universities taking care of the questions of women in Afghanistan, okay? Of the Uyghurs being killed in China, okay? Or the Yazidis being killed in Iraq? Why didn't they wake up when in Syria, 500,000 people were killed and millions became refugees? No, they are interested only in this place of all places in Israel, and they want peace here. Okay, we also want peace, definitely, but having one state with everyone means that it is not a Jewish state anymore. And in this sense, not having a Jewish state, it's not only anti-Zionist, it's definitely anti-Semitic, because there is just one Jewish state. There are dozens of Arab and Muslim states. Why can't they go there and have peace with us? Definitely. From the outside? No. So I think the answer is that it is both. And it is not realistic. We are not going to fall into this trap.
Speaking of the left, when you spoke about they're not denouncing, denouncing Jews, but not other, with not positioning Jews along with other protected minorities.
Yeah.
Singling out Jews as somehow not worthy of. How will this ever change, this position, to make Jews part of that conversation that that Jews are a minority? And where is the communication to tell the story that we need to tell?
Yeah. This I didn't get. What do you mean, the communication?
In other words, that part of question is coming from me. Why are we failing in the communications to be able to tell the story of the stories of what Jews have gone through, and that the reason, let's say Jews need a state, I mean, the whole story of Zionism as not one that's an occupier, but one that we are a minority that is, entitled like these other minorities that the left, sees as being unprotected and needing support.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all the questions. The former ones and these ones are all good and to the point ones. I can highlight this answer a bit more than I have done during my remarks. And this is that the left sees its mission, its goal in protecting minorities that are deprived of the rights and of proper and a respectable existence, okay? And this includes, as formerly, women, or women in certain places now, in certain countries where they are deprived of, and the homosexuals and the queers and the people of non-white color, African Americans, Indian Americans, far Asians, etc., etc. So this is, of course, a very noble goal, as we've said. Why Jews are not in this list? Why are they not? They are a minority. You know that worldwide, the Jewish people today is 0.2% of world population. That's it, 0.2%. After the Holocaust, we did not recover. We are still 14 and a little, 14 y pico, as we say in Spanish, millions, that's it. We did not even recover to the same number. Why? We are certainly a minority, certainly Jews living abroad. But this view that looks at white people as automatically oppressors, wealthy, powerful, those who are depriving the others, this view takes the Jews into this loop and say the Jews are white and powerful and have money, etc., etc. You know this, you all know, I'm sure, the story about two Jews driving in the subway in New York. And each of them is reading a newspaper. And one of them is reading an extreme right anti-Semitic newspaper. And the other said, how can you read this? And in public? He says, well, I get up in the morning, I read your newspaper, the Jewish institutes are in trouble, the Jews are facing this and that danger, Israel is in trouble again, ta, ta, ta. When I read my newspaper, we control the banks, we control the media, we are making the movies in Hollywood. I'm fine, I read this and I'm okay. Jews are automatically privileged, as they call it today, and therefore they cannot be considered a minority. Also, take one more point which I have not mentioned into consideration. This left, mainly academic, left idealistic, goes against the establishment, against the administration, against the conservative building stones of the American state. They are against it. And when they are against it, they are against the United States. They are automatically also against Jews and Israel, who are in such an alliance with American administration and establishment. So you see, we have no place there. When will it end? It will end. I don't want it to end. You know, I don't want this prediction that people are predicted now. I've heard it from the States as well, not only in Israel. When the Muslims give another slap in the face, not here, in another place. In the United States. I don't want it to happen.
Right. So along with that, I guess a final question would be, as a scholar of the Holocaust, if the Jews did not, during the time of the Holocaust, the Shoah, many stayed in their country, many stayed in their countries. They could not fathom this happening. When, of course, Israel as a sovereign state has no place to go, but for those of us in the diaspora, and if you see there is this increasing anti-Semitism, what are the warning signs from your studies of the Holocaust? Again, something we never want to think about, but with increased anti-Semitism, when is it time to really put the alert on that this is a moment in history that could be, repeating itself, God forbid?
No, repeating itself is out of question. Repeating itself is out of question for the very reason that today we know that there was a Holocaust. We know. Before the Holocaust, it didn't dawn on them, of course, that such a thing, such a development is possible. It did not dawn. Now it does. And this is the major difference, that we know that it happened. And because we know that it happened, we look back, we look at what happened before, what were the signs that we saw or we didn't see as a nation, and to try to understand whether there are such signs today. Okay, this is mainly the question. To be on the alert, it's time to be on the alert, no doubt. If a question whether to kill the Jews, all Jews, is okay to be said in university, to be advocated in an Ivy League university, you don't believe your ears. If this is a question, and it depends on the context, which means that in a certain context it will be okay. It depends on context. In parentheses, this means in a certain context that will be okay. So this is definitely the time to be on the alert, bearing in mind that the 30s are the 30s. Then a mighty nation state in the middle of Europe harnessed all its efforts, manpower, money, etc., to convince other people and its own society that the world cannot live with Jews. That is not going to repeat anywhere. Now, Jewish organizations are on their feet and they are fighting back. And Jewish students, may they all be safe and protected, are fighting back and are testifying in Congress. And there is a strong alliance between Israel and the diaspora. And there are leaderships, Jewish leaderships. Then the leadership was lacking in the 1930s. You do see the signs. You see that red lines are crossed, and expressions you never imagined you would hear are here. But Jews are much better organized, have leadership, have solidarity. We are a nation of unparalleled solidarity. Along centuries, Jews have been taking in other Jews from other places, or saving them, or paying to release them from captivity, or whatever. And you should see what this 7th of October did to Israel. We are all over running around, volunteering, giving. We are an unparalleled nation when it comes to solidarity. So I don't think the danger and an overall danger, physical danger, is there. No, but there will be violence. There is violence. It's on the rise. But these are cases that are taken care of, are punished. There are laws. I do hope, I'm sure it will never happen, but this First Amendment of the sacred First Amendment, it does not punish for the word. It punishes only for the deed that emanated in a word, which means when it's too late, the deed has already been done. You are not going to correct or to change the First Amendment, but it is an obstacle. Still, the obstacle is circumvented by hate speech and hate deeds laws. And these are, together with the definition of anti-Semitism and together with the definition of what is anti-Zionism, can be tools for a fight. It's time to be on the alert and to fight. But it will not be repeated. Don't even think of it.
Thank you. That was really a great way to to end this conversation. And thank you so much for everything you're doing to enlighten us And this was a fascinating,
I
fascinating.
have a surprising point to finish with. Okay?
Please.
Today is Hanukkah. And on Hanukkah 120 years ago, Herzl, who was becoming more and more Jewish, discovered the menorah. He called it a menorah, b'Chanukiah, a menorah. And he was a great writer. He wrote volumes, and not enough attention is being paid to him as a playwright, as a story teller, volumes. And he wrote a beautiful piece called The Menorah. Okay, and it is about the Chanukiah that he is lighting with his children. And he's telling them about Jewish history and about the Maccabees, etc. And there is one light, and then there are two, and then there are three, and there is more and more light, and the light is fighting the darkness. And he finds that it is all, the Judaism is so aesthetic, and the holidays are so aesthetic, and that they give hope. And his hope is to be the shames. He wants to be the candle that lights the other candles. This is his mission. And then what he says after this menorah, the discovery of the menorah, what he says in the first Zionist Congress is the following. He says, Zionism is coming back to Judaism even before coming back to the land of Israel. Not Judaism in the religious sense, but in the national one, and in the sense of belonging to a public that has a common bond. Zionism is, first of all, coming to Judaism. He admits that antisemitism drove us to Zionist conclusions, but it drove us from Zionism to Judaism. And this sentence, when it was said, you remember that he was such a handsome man, tall, always very elegant. He stood there in the middle of the first Zionist Congress like the Messiah has come down and is speaking. This made such an impact with which I would like to end, because times are difficult, no doubt, here and in your place as well. But there is, out of these difficulties comes, as Herzl said, such a sense of belonging together, and such a sense of overcoming and of rebuilding everything that was destroyed and starting again better. That I think this is on Hanukkah days. Today is the fourth candle. I think on this note we should end.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And happy Hanukkah and Chag Sameach from all of us here. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming.
Thanks for listening. For more information on the 92nd Street Y, New York, and all of our programs, please visit us at 92ny.org.